The third season of the Seven Deadly Sins finally started airing, so it's the time to be excited, right? Well, I'm not so sure anymore. The first impressions this episode gave me weren't so good to say the least. The animation wasn't so great, though it wasn't horrible, but the real problem I had with this episode was the censoring. All of the blood was white instead of red. If I wanted to see anime characters using white stuff, I'd go watch hentai. I'm here for the blood and gore. And it's not like it's an anime for little kids. It's more targeted towards teenage males. I heard the problem's due to the time slot it got on TV Tokyo, but this is the first time I've ever seen something like this. One Piece airs in the morning and it's even more kid-friendly than the Seven Deadly Sins, but even that show has blood. It would have almost been better if they just took away the blood completely instead of subjecting me to this cum. What I'm hoping for is that this is just a substitute for now, and that it will be replaced with proper blood when it comes out on Netflix or Blu-ray. As long as we get an uncensored version, I'll be at least somewhat happy. If we never get an uncensored version, and the only way to watch the third season of the Seven Deadly Sins is with white blood, I may melt down like Meliodas did when he destroyed Dana 4. Another problem, if you want to call it that, is that this episode isn't very faithful to the manga. Some of the scenes were anime original, and others are somewhat altered scenes from the manga that are out of place. For example, the scene with the kid in his village being attacked by the demons actually took place later in the manga, and the way the events went down were a bit different. I can understand why they did this, though. If it started off where it should have, then the first scene would have been the King and Deanna scene from the pond, and the next few episodes wouldn't focus much on the other sins. So they probably wanted to have the first episode reintroduce us to the main cast and have them have some action scenes. Esterosa and his vision wasn't shown this early in the manga either, and I'm pretty sure the scene with Zeldris talking to that demon and going over to Esterosa's chamber wasn't in the manga at all. However, this scene with Zeldris and Esterosa was probably one of the best in the episode. I really like the lighting, creepy atmosphere, and music. I can understand why they put this scene here as it builds up hype for the events to come. It shows us that Esteros is still alive from his fight with Escanor, and that there's some mystery between him, Meliodas, and Elizabeth in the past. I'm pretty sure the opening scene was anime only as well, but I did like how it set the tone, with creepy music and humans in cages being escorted by demons. Unfortunately, when one of the demons grabbed a human's head and cum oozed out rather than blood, it took me right out of the moment. Meliodas and Bond's entrance, which should have been epic, just turned out looking silly, due to all of the white blood gushing out every time they killed one of the demons. After this scene, the opening started. And I have to say, I do like the opening's music, but the visuals were kind of stale. There was very little movement or cool action scenes, and multiple of the scenes were just clips ripped out right from this episode. Overall though, the opening was enjoyable to watch, but it was mostly carried by the song, which I guess is the most important part of an opening anyways. But it's nice to have some stimulating visuals as well. The first scene after the opening showed us how the state of the kingdom was from the perspective of Hauser and Grimoire, and how the people were trying to move forward and rebuild, but that they were also suffering due to the food shortages. I think it's good that they're showing us that the people's lives aren't all happy and back to normal after the demon invasion, and that there are some actual consequences from the attack. Let's just be happy that they didn't censor unhappy hungry people as well. There's then a short scene with Bond and Meliodas bonding by a fire while eating, with some flashbacks to remind us some of the events from last season. This is another filler scene that wasn't really needed, but it wasn't horrible or anything, so I don't have a problem with it. We then switch over to a small village where we follow the small child named Pelio, who likes to call himself the Dragon Sin Peliotis. I, on the other hand, like to call myself Weeaboo Sin, Wariotis. Pelio discovers his dad is actually kidnapping travelers and handing them over to the demons to curry favor with them, and he reprimands him for it. For some reason, the anime's design of Pelio's dad is different than it was in the manga, but the difference is insignificant, so I don't really care. I just don't know why they would change it for no reason. Maybe they took his beard away so you could see his emotions better. That's the only thing I can really think of. Pelio yelling at his dad and saying that he would defeat the demons is what gets him in trouble in the manga. But here it's when he jumps in and tries to save one of the villagers from one of the demons because they didn't meet their quota on the number of humans they were supposed to capture. This makes Pelio seem a bit braver as he actually charges in to fight the demon, rather than just getting caught talking a big game to his dad when he thought they were alone. The demon he picked a fight with is one of the creepiest in the series, with a big-ass mouth with a bunch of tongue sticking out of it. It has a weird voice to boot. Luckily for Pelio, this is one weak demon, as he survives its beating and his dad even knocks it over by throwing a pitchfork into its head. You can argue it was holding back just to torture the poor child, but it being hurt by a pitchfork thrown by some fat farmer is pretty stupid, especially since this demon's supposed to have a power level of around 1,000, which would make it as strong as a holy knight. As you could have expected, the pitchfork scene wasn't in the manga. When it looked like all hope was lost for the villagers, the 7 deadly sins finally arrived. The creepy-mouthed demon tried to kill Pelio, but Gother pulled a "no you" and made the demon start beating itself up. The biggest demon there tried to pick a fight with Escanor, but all he could do was give him a massage. Escanor then cut the demon in half, revealing his gooey white insides. Wait a second, look at his hands! There's red blood! Red blood, yes! See, the censoring isn't that bad. There's red blood right on his hands. Right there, you see? In all seriousness, I really hope that's a sign that the blood was originally red and that they just had to wait it out for TV. The strongest demon there was this silver demon with tentacles that can absorb magic, which supposedly has a power level of 8,000. This demon wasn't actually present in this village in the manga versions of the events, but it didn't make much of a difference because Merlin made short work of it by having it absorb purgatory venom. This just shows how overpowered she really is, as not only does this demon directly counter magic users like Merlin, since it can absorb magic to make itself stronger, it also has a higher base power level than her as well. But like any other demon, he's white on the inside. Well, at least the anime seems to think that's what's inside of everybody. A whole bunch of weak demon reinforcements show up, but Meliodas just full counters their attacks back at them and kills them all. This scene was kind of meh, as their attacks were just a bunch of different colored beams that came down, even though it showed the red demon spitting fire like it should. And the explosion from the full counter wasn't even visually pleasing. Bond then finished off the creepy mouth demon by stealing its heart, which was pitch black due to the censoring. So I guess demons have black hearts and white blood. After saving the village, we're shown the new Boar's Hat Tavern on top of Hawk's mom. Meliodas and Bond stole Hawk's thunder by taking down the curtain, even though Hawk wanted to be the one to do it. Maybe Meliodas has been bullying Hawk over the years to make his meat tender with depression, so he can have the most delicious pork of his life after he kills and eats him. The next scene is the announcement of the new Great Holy Night, which is another scene out of order, except this time it's out of order in the opposite direction. All of the other scenes were too early, but even though this was one of the final scenes of the episode, this scene actually took place before Gother was even released from prison in the manga, and that scene was at the end of Season 2. The person picked to be the next Great Holy Night was the man with the greatest hairstyle in the kingdom, Hauser. Everyone was disrespectful to poor Hauser though, making fun of how he's just the acting Great Holy Night, and Grimoire even called him Gil's replacement, due to the fact that Gil's been kidnapped if you've forgotten. F you, Grimoire. That was uncalled for. I'm glad you watched Fraudrin be ruthlessly killed in front of your very eyes. After the ceremony was over, the king told the sins of a prophecy he had about all 7 sins joining back together again. We then switch over to one of the non-present sins, King, having a bath in a little pond, when all of a sudden a massive creature enters the water with him. Usually this would be a bad thing, but for King, this was the best possible event that could possibly happen to him, because the thing that just entered the water was a giant naked Deanna. Unfortunately, the mist and water blocked out our view. So here's the scan of her from the manga in all of its glory if you haven't seen it already. You're welcome. This episode wasn't really bad, but like I said, this censorship's a real problem. Well, the naked Deanna censorship isn't much of a problem, but this white blood is just so obtrusive and in your face that it basically ruins the whole episode. All we can do now is hope for an uncensored version.
Bad animation. White blood. Censor Deanna.
Full counter!